Ever since the 7th of October, there were 3 reports of clashes between the Israeli army and the Egyptian army. In the previous one, in the last one, the Egyptian side and the Israeli side agreed that they will not be publishing details about the incident that had multiple Egyptians killed, and reports that some Israelis were killed too in that incident that took place several months back. However, now we have another report from a website called Arabi 21 that had an article saying that martyrs in the ranks of Egyptian army by occupation's fire on the Rafah border. According to them, they had exclusive information coming from reservists in the Egyptian army. And they added, Egyptian army recruits revealed that a number of their colleagues stationed near the Rafah crossing and the Palestinian-Egyptian border were killed by Israeli occupation army fire during its ongoing ground invasion of the city of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip. Spoke with a number of them. The actual website said that a number of Egyptian recruits who had just returned from their compulsory military service, indicating that the situation on the border is extremely difficult and they hear the sounds of shelling and bullets taking place on the Palestinian side. One of the recruits, who refused to reveal his name for fear of being questioned and arrested, indicated that in a dangerous escalation, a number of his Egyptian army colleagues were killed in recent days by Israeli occupation army fire that penetrated Palestinian Rafah, stressing that there is a great deal of secrecy regarding these incidents and strict orders not to respond to the source of the gunfire. He continued, "We are helpless in the face of the massacres committed by the occupation against our Palestinian brothers and the Israeli occupation's killing of children and women, because we receive instructions to be extremely disciplined and not respond under any circumstances." He added, "Despite the danger of the region and the death that threatens us at every moment, we feel deep sorrow and sadness because of our inability to support our brothers in the Gaza Strip and stop the crimes of the Israeli occupation." They had another person from the Egyptian army speaking, who also refused to reveal his name for security reasons, saying that the Egyptian army is heavily deployed in the Egyptian city of Rafah, noting that the sounds of explosions, shellings and gunfire do not stop due to the bombing operations carried out by the Israeli occupation army on the Palestinian side. He stated that the Egyptian army's mission at this stage is limited to conducting inspection tours in the area without getting too close to the border area due to the extreme danger and fire reaching the area. He added, "There are a number of martyrs and injuries that have already occurred among the Egyptian army as a result of the Israeli bombing, and these incidents are not being exported to the media, and there is a cover-up and instructions not to respond to these crimes." They ended up by saying it is noteworthy that the Israeli occupation army began its ground military operation in the city of Rafah on May 6th, and it continues for the 4th consecutive month amid massive destruction in all areas of the city. This is a very dangerous report. The report came from only Arabi 21. We haven't had this report in another news network. However, this information could be exclusive to them. The essence of the report is not surprising. As I said, we've had these incidents before where both Israelis and Egyptians were killed in clashes between the Egyptian and the Israeli army. We've had incidents in the past where Egyptian soldiers, out of their own initiative, out of their own accord, targeted Israeli troops without having an escalation and without the 7th of October previously. However, if these reports are confirmed, you're talking about a severe escalation and a massive active suppression when it comes to the government of Egypt. So far, they have been supporting the Palestinian side in their demand for Israel to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor. Some of these actions could explain Egypt's position when it comes to supporting the Hamas position. However, the Philadelphia corridor is also very important to Egypt. These people saying these things indicate that there is a lot of frustration coming from the Egyptian army, and we wouldn't be surprised if something escalates far more than what it has so far. When it comes to Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu is still insisting on remaining in the Philadelphia corridor. There are talks in Israel that there is some sort of hope. Some people in the military establishment, the security establishment, are demanding Netanyahu to give in and withdraw for at least 6 weeks when it comes to the Philadelphia corridor, telling him that we only agreed on 6 weeks, let's do it at least for the first phase, and then we can actually go back to fighting according to them. Of course, the argument of Benjamin Netanyahu is that once we withdraw, we'll have a lot of pressure not to go back, and so far we've destroyed 80% of the Hamas tunnels, according to him, again, between Rafah, the Gaza side, and the Egyptian Rafah, and he is still insisting to stay there. Meanwhile, the families of the Israeli prisoners in Israel are blaming Benjamin Netanyahu and saying that he is killing them. As a matter of fact, we had a report as well today in Ynet saying that Matan Sengauker's sister, she was injured by a police horseman. The police is taking brutal measures when it comes to the people protesting against the government, including people who were released from Gaza. As a matter of fact, the most vocal people against the government, yet they're not being splattered all across Western mainstream media, are the families of the Israeli prisoners. You're talking about people who were released, people who have families in Gaza, family members in Gaza, held by Hamas and the other resistance movements, who are saying things that are unprecedented when it comes to the government and Israel as a whole. Yet again, nothing is being published on Western mainstream media when it comes to these people trying to cover up the position of Benjamin Netanyahu, although he's going against such a massive chunk of the Israeli public who want to stop this massacre, but the government is continuing and the IDF is continuing. Today they targeted Al-Ma'madan hospital, again, the same hospital that they landed a JDAM on, killing over 500 people in the beginning of the war, when you had people shamelessly trying to cover it up and blame the act on the Palestinians. Israel targeted the place again, leading to at least 3 people killed and dozens wounded, showing that they are escalating further and further, especially with the continued escalation in the West Bank. When it comes to the West Bank, Israel is continuing its targeting, but the resistance in the West Bank is also escalating. Today they said they targeted another senior figure in Hamas from the armed resistance, a couple of days after they assassinated the top figure in the armed resistance in the West Bank. His name is Abu Shuja'. Now they are continuing, but the escalation is coming from the Palestinian side too. They are not only targeting the Israelis, they are recording it. They are recording it, and people are referring to the Hamas spokesperson, the Al-Qassam spokesperson, Abu Ubaida, several months back, saying you need to wait for our surprises in the West Bank. Now the resistance might have been waiting for Israel to escalate, for them to take further escalation measures. Now we're hearing from Israel that they are using shoulder-held firearms, RPG, and they're targeting Israel with them. These weapons, you don't usually find them in the West Bank. And again, the level of preparation, the level of fierce armed resistance in the West Bank is surprising many people, including the Palestinian side. Many people on the Palestinian side did not expect the armed resistance to be so intense, but Israel is saying that we will not let them raise their heads, and we're going to continue on a massive campaign in the West Bank, disregarding the fact that throughout the past 3 decades, they only led to strengthening the resistance. The Israeli actions in the West Bank only increased the resistance, despite the fact that Israel was claiming that it's in a peace process and that it's negotiating. In many cases, of course, they paused the negotiations. But in the West Bank, you have an authority that denounces armed resistance. The Palestinian president of the West Bank Authority, Mahmoud said that we only have peaceful resistance as a path, and we cannot do this armed resistance. Yet, despite them having this partner for decades now, they are still going ahead with their assassinations, with their occupation, with supporting the squatting establishment and their acts of terror against the Palestinian people. And all of these things leave no hope for any potential ceasefire, despite the fact that Israel's trying to split the ceasefire and de-escalation in the West Bank from the ceasefire or potential ceasefire in Gaza.